Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Premier Sim Gaming's League YouTube channel. It is the turn now of the PS4 F7 League to take centre stage here for round 9 at the Circuit of the Americas for the United States Grand Prix. My name is Jake, and I hope you're all having a very great day indeed. I'm sure we're in for another very captivating race here in what is definitely becoming one of the most unpredictable tiers on PSGL right now. We've already had 8 races, of course, this being round 9, and in that time we have had 7 different winners. Could we very possibly get an 8th different winner tonight? I certainly wouldn't put it past this tier, knowing what we've seen previously. Before we get stuck into tonight's action, let's have a quick look back at last week around Singapore, and before I quickly dive into that, we can already see we've got rain at the start of qualifying, so that is already thrown quite a spanner in the works already, and it'll be interesting to see how these drivers cope with these changeable conditions. So we have got intermediate running in qualifying. That will render a lot of the time trial Grand Prix mode work pretty useless unless anyone has done any wet running. I'm sure we're about to find out as the first couple of cars venture onto the track. So yeah, last week we had round 8 around the floodlit streets of Singapore as Game Freak called the changeable conditions perfectly to take a stunning win, comfortably beating Prenz, who edged out Powdy to second, and they both also went on to intermediates at the perfect time to claim surprise podiums. It was very much pitting under the safety car that worked out for them. As we go on board with Vapor Zero, one of the first people to venture out onto the track. It was kind of a disaster though for those looking to take advantage of championship leader Felix's absence, as only Morgan managed to score points in the chasing pack, and it was only in 8th place for the Ferrari driver, and he was looking on course for to definitely be in the top 3 for the most of that race, potentially even win until we had the changing conditions and the safety car. So a missed opportunity for those playing catch up to Felix. However, as you may notice from the field of drivers we've got this evening, they have another chance to try and close in, because Felix is absent again tonight as well. So it's a second opportunity that perhaps the likes of TNR Jonas and Morgan didn't expect, and they really do have to take advantage of it tonight. But these changeable conditions in qualifying could put pay to that. Coming into this race in terms of a championship, Felix is still your championship leader. He holds a 9-point advantage over Morgan in second, with Jonas a further 4 points behind the reigning F7 champion, 13 points adrift of the current championship leader, with 3 gloves in 4th, and the 2 Red Bulls of Tim Matz and Bryn following closely behind. In terms of the constructors then, you've got TB Sen and Morgan, the Ferrari duo, currently with a 13-point advantage over Red Bull, with Williams and Racing Point, and possibly even Alfa Romeo as well, still with a faint hope in that championship. Let's give you a little background then about the venue for tonight's race. The Circuit of the Americas was opened back in 2012 and has become the permanent home that the United States has needed in F1 for a very long time. One of the more popular Herman Tilke design tracks, this 3.4 mile circuit features 20 corners with 11 to the left and 9 to the right, and is one of a few counterclockwise tracks on the calendar. The lap record was set by Charles Leclerc in 2019 on a 136.169, and we have 2 DRS zones on this circuit, one down the pit straight and the other after that turn 11 hairpin and down this straight, which you're actually currently seeing Vapor Zero just go down now. I've already got a yellow flag, so somebody's had an issue. Expect drama and overtakes galore here in F7 tonight, aided by those DRS zones, but this track anyway tends to produce great racing just for the nature of it. You've got the Suzuka-esque first sector, I mean, you've got plenty of overtaking spots as well. It's got a lot of different things to this track, and there's even opportunities in this final sector to overtake. There are corners that invite you in to take a little dive here and again. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but this track definitely doesn't shy itself away from providing overtaking opportunities. Vapor Zero's coming round the final corner now in the Racing Point, set our opening lap time of qualifying, and it's going to be a 1:44.5. Sam is just behind him on the road. Of course, you may remember Sam was a full-time driver at AlphaTauri earlier in the season, dropped to reserve, but actually takes over Felix as Williams for tonight. That's definitely a hard ask to follow, it's fair to say, and he goes into third with his first effort. And Game Freak has already gone quickest, the winner of the last race, of course. We saw how handy he was at calling the changeable conditions, so it suggests he's got a pretty good eye in the wet as well, the Belgian driver, and takes an early provisional pole position, but there's plenty of drivers still out on laps, and of course we're still very early days into qualifying. TNR Jonas around the final corner. Free Gloves has gone into third. It isn't a particularly great lap from Jonas, it's only good enough for P5 as Morgan's about to come round the final corner. What's he going to do across the line? He goes on to provisional pole position then. A couple of attempts up as Bryn now comes up to the final corner, and he's on a pretty good lap as well, but he looks like he's had a bit of a shaky final sector and only goes into 8th place as a result. We've got Prenz out there. We've got 2nd place last week at Singapore and showed some pretty good driving in the wet conditions to earn that place. Of course, he was a driver that replaced Sam at AlphaTauri in a full-time seat, and that was really his first real sign of what he can do last week at Singapore. What can he do for his first effort here in qualifying? It's good enough for 5th place, just popping him ahead of Powdy, who of course he edged out in the race last week. Oh, and Bryn's had a spin just in front of TB7, and I don't know if that oversteer from TB7 was partly down to a sort of expectation that he was about to go into the Red Bull, but that's not what you want to see on your fine lap. Bryn, who I don't know if he was going for a 2nd lap or not, but either way, it didn't work out too well for him. Marcus is behind on his out lap. Paco Suarez is not particularly going quickly. Nick Mayney's on a lap, so I'm going to follow him round. See drivers just struggling for grip. This isn't the easiest track to deal with in the wet conditions. You've got plenty of lines you can take though, so there is that advantage to it. But it gives you plenty of opportunities to get it wrong as well through some of these corners. Nick Mania as Dimsky goes onto provisional pole on a 44.0. Nick Maney is about to put in his opening effort of qualifying, which is good enough for P8 right now. TB Sen, is he going to finish his lap? I don't think he's particularly quick. He may go for another lap. We shall have to wait and see on that one. Let's go on board then with Oogie. But Oogie's not pushing at the moment either, unfortunately. Have we got anyone out there going for a potential another lap, I wonder? It looks to me like Morgan's going for another push lap. Because there is the opportunity here to potentially go for another push lap if you do want to. Powdy's on a better lap, so we'll follow him round this final part of the lap. Obviously on intermediate conditions, it's not as simple as do a flying lap and just go into the pits. There is the opportunity to improve just with the more laps you do. So Powdy wanted to complete this lap, but he had a massive moment there, and that ultimately means he does not improve on his previous lap time. Is Sam gonna go for... no, he's going to the pits. I think he backed off towards the end of that lap. He's gone back on board with Morgan. He's already 7 tenths up in the first sector, so he's finding a lot of time and grip out there. How's he looking for the middle part of the lap? Only 4 tenths up now. Maybe the grip from the tyres is starting to go away from them. The dry weather tyres around here do tend to last quite a long time, but maybe the intermediate's not quite giving them the grip they'd expect. Either that or Morgan may have made a slight error in the middle sector. Well, I guess we'll find out at the end of this lap. We saw Powdy really start to struggle towards the end of his hot lap. What will happen to Morgan here? Provisional pole position is available for him, as long as he can hook up this final corner. Oh, he's in danger of running wide, but he hooks it up nicely, and Morgan takes provisional pole back. First person into the 143s, and goes 4 tenths quicker of Dimsky at the front. Morgan, we know how quick he is in the dry, and he's showing he's pretty handy in the wet conditions too. TB Sen's not on a lap. Marcus has just put in a lap time He's gone across the line to go into 4th place. Prenz is on a potential improvement. He does improve. He moves up 1 place to go up to 7th, ahead of TNR Jonas. And into the 44s he goes. Powdy is going to be going into the pits, I'd imagine. Tim Mats may very well be on a lap. Let's have a look. Looks like he is. 27.5 for the first sector, which is very competitive. You don't tend to lose too much in terms of pit stops around here, although to be honest with you, if it's a conventional dry race, it should be a 1-stop race. It's a 28 lap race, soft to medium. It's pushing the tyres a little bit, but it's definitely possible. Of course, for those outside the top 10, the opportunity to start on mediums will be there. But either way, the hard tyres are a potential option as well. But 1-stop should be possible. You could do a 2-stop if you think that you got the pace to bring it back. So it could be one to look out for. Due to the fact that you do only lose about 18.5 seconds in the pit lane here. 28 lap race, of course. And here goes Tim Mats then. Through these turns 17 and 18, very difficult corner to get right, especially in these conditions, through the penultimate left-hander at turn 19. Now braking into turn 20, it's important you don't pick up any oversteer on this exit. Could ruin Tim Mats' lap. We saw there he had to battle with the rear end of the car a bit, but that pops him up to 3rd. And a nice effort indeed for Tim Mats. Who else is out there on a lap at the moment? Looks like Bryn might be on a lap. I'm just going to check where he is. Okay, so he's behind Free Gloves on the road, so I'll follow what Free Gloves up to on this lap because he is improving. I wonder if the track conditions may be starting to improve just slightly as well. Still raining out there, but of course I don't think we're going to be seeing a slick running before the end of the session. Of course, what'll be interesting here is if any drivers do prioritise maybe some slightly wet setup just for this session. I guess it depends, of course, what the race weather has in store. Free Gloves goes round the final corner and goes onto the front row provisionally, up to 2nd. Bryn's on a much better lap. They should shoot him up the order. Certainly a driver who's slowly but surely improving as the weeks go by. And could be a big threat. Bryn across the line here and goes on to provisional pole by 0.6 of a second. And that's quite a mighty leap forward there from him to set a 43.0, and that will make Morgan sit up and pay attention for sure. He's actually just got out on track as I speak. Game Freaker is also on a personal best, currently in 6th. Of course, turn 17, 18, the infamous spot on the track where Verstappen was robbed of his podium after the race for what was just to be an illegal overtake on the entry of turn 17 on Kimi Raikkonen, as he had all 4 wheels off the track. Game Freaker pops it into 2nd onto the front row of the grid, so definitely looks like the drivers are getting more comfortable out there. The conditions may be starting to improve as well, and as a result the lap times are starting to come tumble down. Although having said that, TNR Jonas looks like he's still wrestling a car a fair bit from his end of things. Who else is out there at the moment on a lap, I wonder? Sam's just improved to go up to 6th place. Anyone close to complete? So everyone at the moment at least is going through the opening couple of sectors. TV Sen, he's going quicker, but I've got to be honest, there's not really competitive at the moment from him. Ugi's about to put in his first lap time of qualifying, but again, only a 46.5. He's going to need to find a bit more pace than that if he really wants to challenge up at the sharp end. TNR Jonas is a driver I want to keep an eye on, but he's struggling to find time. Look at that, you can see how much he's wrestling with the rear end of that racing point. He's just not sticking, not gripping up into the corners. He doesn't look comfortable at all out there, and quite unsurprisingly he returns to the pits. Vapour improving a little bit. Let's see what Nick Maney is up to in the McLaren. Bring back in the pits while Morgan has started his hot lap. We'll keep an eye on how that one develops. Mania currently outside the top 10, but I get the feeling with this lap that is about to change. Nick Mania goes across the line, goes up to 7th, goes firmly inside the top 10 for now. Vapor Zero goes up to 4th. He found a mega final sector there. Didn't look like he was improving that much until the final part of the lap, but found a lot of time in that final sector to move up the field. To see what Morgan's up to on his lap. He's just behind, I believe that was Marcus, so we're going to follow Marcus round on his lap because he is improving. Currently in 10th spot and the times are just tumbling. And a lot of drivers will be getting ready for their final runs. Some drivers may not have timed this too well in terms of the checkered flag, and it could very well be the last driver across the line has the best chance for pole. Bryn's back out there. Game Freaker and Sam Cowdy are 3 drivers who could potentially time this very right. Marcus then across the line, currently P10 for the Mercedes driver, and he improves to 4. Nice effort indeed. Morgan is going around the final corner. Looks like he's had an error in the final part of the lap, so he stays 3rd for now. Not ideal for him. Free Gloves has improved. Sam is thinking about coming out on slicks, but I'm not sure about that one at all. Prenz is on a personal best, currently in 11th place. And Prenz improves, but doesn't improve in position, so he stays just outside the top 10 right now. Let's see who we got out there. Dimsky is one driver who may be on a lap. He is indeed. He's improving marginally, but we've seen some drivers can pull out big improvements in this final sector. I think Vapor Zero's session's done, so 5th place is the best place he's going to start. I suspect with the conditions, he may drop down a few spots there. Dimsky's one driver who could overtake him, runs a bit wide out of the last corner though, and doesn't improve, stays 7th, so that mistake right at the end of the lap. Sam's out on dries, which, I've got to be honest, I don't think he's going to work. I just almost want to go on board with him here for a few corners just to see how he's finding it. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's much grip out there at all. Is Morgan still pushing? Not too sure. Everyone's just sort of starting their what could be final hot laps. It really is going to be a case of who can hook it up right at the end of qualifying. Morgan's going to go for one last attempt. Tim Max is probably the furthest person into his lap. He'll probably see the checker flag first. Marcus won't be going again, so his session is over. A few drivers may wish they have timed this a bit differently, but it's no easy feat in these conditions to correctly time things. Of course, the real life F1 teams have got a whole group of engineers who can accurately work it out for them. These guys have got to drive the car and work it out for themselves. Tim Max going around the final couple of corners then. It's not been a particularly spectacular lap thus far. Could he find something in the final sector perhaps to moving up? He was 10th. Nick Mania moves up to 5th right at the end. Tim Max stays 10th, doesn't improve. And we've got so many drivers out there who could potentially find improvements. Game Freaker is one of them. We're going to go on board with him. We'll keep an eye on what everyone else is doing as well. Dimsky's session is over. He's dropped to 8th thanks to Nick Mania's improvement. Morgan is just in front of Game Freaker here, so is Morgan going to move out of the way? Does that suggest that he's not doing another lap? TNR Jonas moves up to 7th. I think he'll be a bit disappointed with that, but at least he has found some improvement at the end. Oogie, the session's done, he's 13. Free Gloves moves up to the 2nd row, he's now 3rd. And I wonder here if Game Freaker's lap's been slightly compromised by Morgan, who might be trying to improve himself. Let's see, Morgan's going to come around the final corner. Game Freaker as well. What can Game Freaker do? He's currently in 2nd. Morgan does improve. So they're just running really close on track together. And ultimately that's put Morgan back up to the front row. Game Freaker slots into third. Powdy across the line improves to 13th. I think he'll be quite disappointed with that, all things considered. TB said improves but stays 15th, and Paco Suarez, I'm afraid, is just having a bit of a nightmare out there, to be honest. And Sam's gamble onto dries really didn't work out. So Williams' struggles without Felix continue, but it is Bryn who takes pole position with a great effort, 1:43.0, 3/10 of a second advantage over Morgan, who I think will be relieved to pop it onto the front row in the end. Had to go for a second lap, a second push lap on those inters. Game Freaker up to third. Free Gloves did a good effort in fourth. Marcus stays fifth, which isn't too bad really, because he did his best lap quite a while ago. Nick Mania sixth. TNR John is just struggling for that raw pace in the wet. Never really looked on top of the car. He will start seventh, just 0.02 of a second ahead of his teammate Vapor Zero. Dimsky, who at one point looked like he was going to challenge for the first couple of rows, dropped to 9th. Sam stays in the top 10 despite his soft tyre gamble. And Tim Matz will drop just outside the top 10 in the end in 11th. Just one driver in qualifying failing set a time, and that's Paco, who we've mentioned just hasn't had a great time of things. Prenz will start 12th, got Powdy 13th, Oogie 14th, TB Sen, another driver who never looked overly comfortable during that qualifying session, in 15th, and Paco rounds out the grid. Should be a very exciting race ahead. I'm very interested to see what the weather's going to be like in the race. I think there's a few drivers out there who will be hoping that the rain stays away throughout the 28 laps. But we shall see. This is a great opportunity. Morgan up in second. He's got a 9-point deficit in the championship to Felix, who is absent again this evening. This is a big opportunity for him to potentially become the new championship leader. As we really get down now to the nitty-gritty of the season, we've got just 3 races left to go after this. We visit Mexico next week before penultimate race in Abu Dhabi, and a proper old-school finish to the season where we finish round 12 at Suzuka. So 3 very different challenges to come after this one for these guys, but their only focus now will be on the Circuit of the Americas, and what is a very sunny looking Circuit of the Americas, a far cry from what we saw in qualifying, and I think for some drivers that'll be a big relief, and we may see very different things to what we saw in qualifying, with the changing conditions, with the setups maybe working slightly better in the dry for some drivers. We're not too far away now from the formation lap. Of course, in terms of the tyres brought here, you got the soft, medium and hard as always. Soft of a C4 tyre, medium C3 and hard a C2, so the middle compounds brought by Pirelli for this one. The medium tyre is estimated to be 1.4 seconds a lap slower than the softs, with hards over 2 seconds slower than the softs. But of course the softs will wear a lot quicker. So you may get that initial grip from the soft tyre, but it will fade fast. In terms of a good race tyre, I feel like the medium tyre will be very well optimised here. And I think as well it'll be quite easy to do a simple medium to hard strategy if you wish. If you absolutely don't feel too comfortable on the tyre wear. Of course, with a wet qualifying, all the drivers had the opportunity to choose what tyres they wanted to start the race on. And it is not too surprising to see that only 3 drivers have not gone for mediums. 13 drivers starting on the mediums, and then you got Dimsky, Oogie and TB Sen all starting on the softs. Interesting to see what those soft tyre runners do. Like I said, a one stop from soft to medium can be done, but you are stretching the tyres quite hard with that strategy. So there's a couple of different strategy options. Of course, safety cars, damage can all come into play with that. And it's of course Bryn leading them away. Well, I've got to be honest, it is too late for him in terms of a title charge this season. But the form he's showing should give him a lot of confidence going into next season. And of course, he'll still be thinking that him and his teammate could very much win the Constructors' Championship, because it hasn't really been a consistently scoring team throughout the whole season. The current Constructors leaders are Morgan and TB Sen, and TB Sen has been quite inconsistent in his point scoring. So if Bryn, and he can be backed up by Tim Matt, start to perform really well for Red Bull, the Constructors' Championship is definitely there for the taking. So I suspect that will be one of their targets. As we come towards the end of a formation lap now. I mean, it kind of just shows what I'm saying, really, with the fact that we don't really have a consistently performing constructor in this tier, because the top 7 cars are all from different teams, which just tells you everything you need to know, really. And I suspect if Felix were here, we'd be talking about 8 different teams in the top 8 positions. But of course he's not, and that gives Morgan, Jonis, and potentially Free Gloves and Tim Matts real opportunities here to sive into his championship lead. As the cars all line up now. Here we go then, the lights will illuminate, and when they go out, let battle commence. Here at the Circuit of the Americas, it looks like a very good getaway from Bryn. Game Freak is slightly slow away there, Morgan even slower away, and that's going to give an opportunity to Marcus up the inside to turn 1. Almost going 3 wide there as Bryn leads away. Marcus into second, Morgan trying to hang it around the outside of him. They're going to go side by side for his very difficult complex of corners, and Morgan holds on to second, and it looks like we've got plenty of action throughout the field. It looks like everyone so far at least is keeping it clean, but Bryn leads away with Morgan in second, Marcus in third, Game Freaker drops to 4th, Free Gloves in 5th, Nick Mania 6th, and it looks like Vapor Zero has had a bit of a tough start. He's getting swallowed up a bit, and there's a massive crash! There's a massive crash. That's Nick Mania and TNR Jonis who have got into the wall, and is that a big moment for the reigning F7 champion as he sees his potential title hopes fading away with that big crash there on a McLaren. Unfortunately, couldn't really see too much as to what had happened there. Be interesting to see their perspectives, of course, after the race. But meanwhile, we've got Vapor Zero and Oogie doing battle over 8th place as they go side by side, coming up to turn 13 and 14 now. Rounding it round his difficult sequence of corners, Vapor Zero has managed to keep hold of a place. Of course, Oogie on those soft tyres, Dimsky and TB Sen. I mean, TB Sen and Oogie have had very good starts on their soft tyres, so it's a good effort from them, and it's helped, obviously, some of the carnage they've had. I suspect we're going to see Nick Mania and TNR Jonis in the pits at the end of this lap, and that's a real disaster for the pair of them, but in particular for the TB Sen pits. I can't imagine he's got damage there. I don't know why it says DRNS enabled, because it is only lap 2. Oh, he is having a front wing change, so he did collect damage on lap 1. Unfortunate for him. And now, of course, the timing screens will eventually sort themselves out. TNR Jonis is in the pits. Has Nick Mania got away with that damage, or is he still recovering to the pits? It looks like he's got away with that damage, but TNR Jonis absolutely hasn't. And that's a real shame for him. Dimsky's already got a penalty. Of course, the nature of his opening part of the lap means it can be very easy just to pick up the odd penalty here and there. And we've got Dimsky right on the back of Game Freaker, of course, trying to make those soft tyres work to good effect. You can see how much Jonis has been affected by that. Unless there's a safety car, it could be a tough race ahead for him, and potentially pivotal races. He probably maybe concedes the defence of his title after this one, unless he can produce a stirring comeback drive in the next 26 or so laps, as Dimsky is right at the back of Game Freaker and looking like he really wants to get a move on with this. He knows that those soft tyres won't be great forever, and he needs to make hay now while the sun is still shining on them. And Bryn is still leading the way pretty comfortably, it has to be said at this point. Got away very nicely. Morgan, I think, will be happy to keep second ultimately, just because he didn't have the best start to the race. So ultimately for him it was just about keeping ahead of Marcus, which he managed to do. And he's we're sort of gapping each other, the top 3 right now. And Dimsky still right behind Game Freaker and unable to get past at this stage. TNR Jonas, interestingly enough, has gone to a set of soft tyres, so just looking to get the hammer down and see what happens really on that one, I suspect. Dimsky just not quite at this stage. He's in overtake for a bit, but not too long, as he looks to just slot in behind the Renault driver, and he's actually got a good opportunity here. Maybe just got a slightly better run out of turn 11, and he gets the move done before we even get to turn 12. So, important move for Dimsky, and he's up to 4th, and the next driver up the road from him is his teammate Marcus, so he'll try and set off now after his teammate. That was an important move for Dimsky because he was starting to get cut adrift from the top 3. And if he's going to make that soft tyre stint work early on, he needs to get the hammer down as much as he can. And it'll be interesting to keep an eye on him just to see how quickly he can close in on those in front. He's already starting to maybe make headway on his teammate as Bryn looks to clear that DRS zone. But it is Dimsky who's done the fastest lap, so that just shows how quick he is. Vapor Zero's already got a penalty. Of course, Dimsky has as well, so getting penalties this early on does put you on the back foot to some extent, because you are very much playing dare almost with the track limits for the rest of the race. Gotta say though, this improvement from Bryn's been seriously impressive of late, and he's now able to take the fight to the rest of the field, and the front runners, so to speak. He's been very, very up there across many leagues, to be honest, recently. As Nick Mania is out of the race. What's happened there? Looks like it's a crash, and we got a virtual safety car. Not what Jonas wanted to see. He would have preferred a full safety car. Quick comment in the chat. We've got where is Marcus in the championship? Excellent question. And in terms of Marcus is 11th in the championship on 15 points. But it is worth noting, I believe he was a reserve at the start of the season, so he didn't actually start 2 of the first 3 races. He got a podium, 3rd place at Monza, which is his best result up to now. But yeah, at the moment at least, he's 11th in championship, but still a good end to the season, and he could place very well considering that, you know, like I said, he had to miss 2 of the first 3 races just because he was a reserve. He got the full-time Mercedes seat, I believe, around 4 or 5 races ago now. So, and he's been solid. Maybe a bit more consistency, a little bit of bad luck here and there, but that podium at Monza, definitely the highlight of his season so far, and he'll be looking to try and back that up here tonight because he's had a pretty decent start to the race. And that will be summed up by the position change. He's gained 2 places off the start. It was Game Freaker and 3 Gloves who ultimately dropped down. Obviously Dimsky and Oogie are the big winners, but that's helped to some extent. Oh, what's happening? Was there contact, I wonder, between Nick Mania and Prenz? Because Prenz is having his front wing changed. So that would suggest to me maybe there was contact between Nick Mania and Prenz, or if it was something that went on under the VSC. I'm not too sure, but either way, Prenz is in the pits now for a set of hard tyres, which he should be able to get to the end with a bit of tyre saving. So he rejoins the race just in front of Jonas, I believe. In fact, that could be very close, actually. Just hesitant to look, just in case something goes off here. You've got Marcus closing down, actually, to the back of Morgan, who, as predicted, has just slipped out of our DRS range momentarily of Bryn, but it's sort of hovering around the 1 second mark, so tantalisingly close for the Ferrari, and Bryn not quite able to break away completely. No doubt about it, Dimsky's benefited from clearing the Renault. He's pulling away from the Renault, and he's been dragged along, if anything, by his teammate at the moment, as all these 4 lap quite closely together at this stage of the race. Oogie is right on the back of Zero for 7th place. We've got a yellow flag in sector 3. What's that all about? Just trying to see if I can find out what that was all about. It might have been for Paco Suarez, and it definitely is for now, because he's gone spinning into the wall, and it's been an absolute nightmare of a season for the Williams driver. Like I said, all the Williams Constructors points have been scored by his teammate. And of course, a race winner in season 26 here in F7. This is not what Paco would have been looking for, and I suspect it could be. It's just going to be a really long race for him as Dymski moves past Marcus. I don't know if that was choreographed between the two Mercs. Either way, I'm not sure they did the best job of doing it, but nevertheless, the two Mercedes are swapped positions, and Dymski's going to be sort of allowed here to push maybe. Well, I say that. How did Marcus made a slight error, because now Marcus is coming back at him, so the two Mercs doing battle, there's no team orders here at all. I stand corrected on that one. And Dymski's now slotted back in behind Marcus, so maybe a slight error from Marcus, but he's made the place back again. But that of course has given Morgan some breathing space. Ugi's moved up to 7th, past 0. So he's another one making a pretty good fist of things on the soft tyres. TB sent up past Paco into 12th. But as you can see, the bottom sort of 4 cars being very much cut adrift at the moment. This is doing a Mercedes no favours at all, and I tell you what, from that view there, that looked dangerously close to Dymski running into the back of his teammate. Things getting a little bit scruffy at Mercedes, it has to be said, right now in this stage of the race, and that's allowing the top 2 to just pull away that little bit. It's not race, not too damaging for them, but they definitely could have afforded to stay that little bit closer to the guys in front. Free Gloves is just sort of hovering at the moment in 6th place, just behind Game Freaker. This is sort of signalling a bit of a rejuvenation in form for the Renault driver, it has to be said, because he was struggling up to Singapore. Of course, Constructors Champions in season 26, I believe Game Freaker was. As actually in contention for a championship for quite a lot of it, but that kind of went away towards the back end of the season. But there, this season was a nightmare up to that fantastic win in Singapore. I think he won by about 20 seconds in the end, or just under 20 seconds, which in a tier as close as this almost feels like a lifetime. That sort of winning margin you expect to see in real life Formula 1, not between drivers that are as close together as this. I want to see what... I don't really know. There's no real point in Mercedes swapping their drivers around now, because it could be argued that Dymski has sort of seen the best of us soft tyres. Again, he's clearly more confident on the brakes into turn 1. That's becoming very evident. But they're better off not fighting too much, because they may allow the 2 cars behind to start closing in once again. Bryn is doing a solid job up front at the moment, 1.5 second lead over Morgan. Felix will be, I don't think Felix will be too disappointed with that. He could, you know, he probably suspected really that Morgan would have a good run of results here, so the 8th place in Singapore would have been good for him, and if Morgan can not win this race either, it would be pretty good for Felix, assuming of course he is able to return in Mexico next week. Again, the Mercs super close to each other, but Dymski not going for a move on this occasion, quite wisely, I would say so. Of course, Mercedes started the season in F7 with a completely different driver lineup to what they have now. They started the season with Mark, who is now a McLaren driver. Fortunately, couldn't race tonight due to some connection issues, and Rowan. So it's been very much a season of transition for the Mercedes team, and they're sort of finding their feet now with these 2 drivers, and this is probably the best team showing from them for a decent while. But Dymski unfortunately has picked up another penalty. Look at that already, 6 seconds for him, 3 seconds for his teammate, and a couple of other penalties lying about too. The top 2 are really starting to pull away now. Marcus just hasn't quite got the pace to keep up with them. So it is becoming, at this stage of the race, a 2-horse race. And Marcus as well has got a second penalty. We've got a yellow flag in sector 3. That's Paco Suarez, who's gone round again. And his race is just going from bad to worse. somehow I think he's made another spin without collecting damage, but for him it's just not working out at the moment, and he's dropped to the back of the field. But this is ultimately, Marcus just isn't quite got the pace right now, I think it's fair to say, and it's starting to bunch his teammate into those behind, so Dymski might think, I need to get a move on with this, and there's contact between the two Mercedes, and that looks like there's some damage as a result on Dymski's front wing. And I have to say, I said it was getting a bit scrappy between the two Mercs. Well, I think it's gone from scrappy now to full-on implosion, because that's just not the way a team should be working. And to be honest with you, they're kind of just costing each other at this point. They've already got a few penalties, and now Dymski's got damage as well. It's just all going wrong for them. Game Freaker is looking for a move. I suspect Dymski's probably going to pit now. And what an absolute travesty for Mercedes. That was just something that didn't need to be done. Like I said, I don't know who was really to blame for that one with the broadcast camera views, or even if it was someone to blame, but ultimately they could have figured that out much better than what they did. And Toto Wolff will be banging his fist on the desk on that one, because he will not be wanting to see that. That's not the sort of teamwork we expect from Mercedes. And it almost harks back to the Hamilton-Rosberg days. And will Game Freaker now start to pose a challenge to Marcus, I wonder, because Marcus just doesn't look like he's quite got the pace right now, as we've got another yellow flag sector 3. I think Paco may very well have gone for another spin through turn 18. Fortunately for him, it just isn't his night, and it looks like it's going to be another non-point score for him. The top two probably not too aware of what's going off behind, as Paco, I think, is about to retire in the pits. Now I think he's on the pit straight, actually. He's gone for another spin. Oogie currently in 6th, doing a pretty solid job on the soft tyres. It'll be interesting to see how it works out later on. A little explanation as to why Marcus might be struggling for pace. Although it's weird really, because he started off very quick, but he seems to have dropped in pace a little bit. But he's a wheel driver currently using a pad, so that's fair enough on that one. Doing a pretty good job, all things considered. But yeah, ultimately the teamwork at Mercedes definitely is something that could be worked on. But I guess when you haven't had a stable lineup all season, things like that can creep in. We're coming into the pit stop window now. I've got to be honest, it's very much looking like a two-horse race, and I feel sorry for Paco, but I've got to be honest, every time I see a yellow flag, I'm fairly convinced it's for him, and each time I glance at the map, I'm not proved wrong. Bryn just still slightly stretching the lead now for 2 seconds at the moment, but of course the penalties are so easy to get around here. That's not a safe margin. Both of them have avoided penalties thus far. Dymski's pitted for another set of softs, so he's pretty much keyed himself in for a 2-stop race here. I have to run a set of mediums later on. He's rejoined in some very good clear air actually, so at least now he can just try and get the hammer down and put in some good laps just outside the points. And there definitely is some points available for him towards the end, I suspect. Game Freaker currently in 4th. And he has, as it's predicted, just started to close it to the back of Marcus for 3rd place. You see Paco just running off the road there to move out of the way. And he's gonna, I think he's gonna come into the pits. I might be wrong though. And we've got, yeah, Paco has decided enough is enough, and he has retired from the race. But we've got a safety car. Well, I don't. He must not have retired in the pits then. I wonder if I can try and catch that on board with somebody. Oh, as the Renault nearly ran into a safety car there. Dymski's going to pit, which is quite annoying actually. I was kind of hoping to see what happened. Trying to see if I can catch anything on board with TB Sem, but I think he's going to pit as well. I'm going to see if I can catch anything around the corner. No, it's very difficult to see, sadly. And I suspect everyone's going to be coming in the pits, so yeah, it looks I think the car's gone now anyway, so nevertheless we've got a safety car, and that, to be fair, kind of works out pretty well for Bryn and Morgan. If they just want to come in and stick on a set of hards to the end, they're pretty okay to do that. They should be fine. I mean, they've got the pace advantage anyway, so they might not have to worry too much about others being on quicker tyres. I expected Paco was just going to retire in the pits. I wonder if he maybe crashed into the pit wall. I don't know. But that has brought out the safety car and is going to bunch the field up. And Dimsky, I think now is going to try and run mediums to the end, but ultimately I don't think his strategy's worked out too well. Bryn does indeed pit. Morgan follows him in. I suspect we're about to see some hard tyres fitted onto these two leaders. Oh, soft tyres for Bryn, interestingly. And so does Morgan. Those aren't going to go to the end, I'm pretty sure. So obviously, I think there's a pace disadvantage, I think, of the hard tyres. It's just steering a lot of people away from them, so a lot of people going on to softs. But for someone like Oogie, who started on the softs, he can now go into mediums. I tell you what, Oogie's a bit of a dark horse here, because I'm pretty confident he could go to the end from here. Maybe they're thinking with a safety car period, they can stretch out the soft tyres to last, but I don't know. Oogie could be one to look out for here, because I think he's in a pretty solid position right now. Those medium tyres could be very good for him. It looks like it's not worked out with pit stop phase too well for Game Freaker. He's been jumped by Free Gloves during those pit stops, so Free Gloves now up to 4th place. Further down we've got Tim Matz up to 7th, Powdy in 8th, 0-9th. Sam completing top 10. Prenz is in the pits. And Bryn leads them under the safety car. We're under safety car conditions and on lap 13 following a crash for Paco Suarez. Looks like he was coming into the pits, may have got into the pit wall, I'm not too sure. But nevertheless, he has DNF'd after a pretty catastrophic race from his point of view. Earlier on, Nick Mania retired from the race as well. There was a major collision between him and TNR Jonas at the start of the race, which has put TNR Jonas outside the points at the moment. Bryn took pole position in intermediate conditions in qualifying and has led pretty much ever since. Morgan closely following in behind in second. There was a gap starting to form to the group behind up until that safety car period with Marcus, Game Freaker and Free Gloves, but of course that has now been bunched up together. But I expect when the safety car comes in that those top two will probably begin to stretch their legs once more. The soft tyres will be a stretch to get to the end from here. So keep an eye out for Oogie in particular, who's currently in P6 and shouldn't have to stop again. So he's one to keep an eye on and could be one that potentially gets a great result here tonight. Some suggestions that they believe softs can finish the race. You're still looking at probably about 13-14 racing laps. So the data I've got, 12 laps is sort of what the soft tyre limit is. So I mean, if there's another safety car period, then I think it'll definitely make it a lot easier for them. But if the safety car comes in at the end of this lap, which is highly likely, then it's going to be tough for these guys, I suspect, with still 14 racing laps to do. It's going to be an intriguing one for sure, and I definitely think even if they can get the softs to the end, Oogie's tyres will be in much better shape in those final few laps. Obviously, I can sort of understand in the end why they went for softs, because although hards would have definitely got to the end, they are very, very slow. Prenz has caught up to the back, so I suspect we are going to have a safety car in this lap. And that will not play into these two's hands one bit. Yep, safety car is in at the end of this lap. This is going to be an intriguing second half to the race here. The only one who has gone for hards is Powdy. He's going to be very slow, I suspect, particularly in these early laps when the tyres are warming up. But he shouldn't, he won't have any tyre issues at the end. His hards will be absolutely fine. And then you got those on towards the back on mediums who will be in pretty decent shape, but they just haven't got the track position that Ugi has, so that's why I think he is the main one to look out for. But how will these guys do on softs? And of course, can Bryn and Morgan build such a lead that they're able to tyre manage potentially later on? And back underway here. And Austin Bryn's decided the moment he wants to go, and I've got to be honest, I think he's caught Morgan a little bit napping on that one. Marcus, if anything, is going to have a potential opportunity here to take P2. Morgan was very much sleeping on this restart, and this is a big opportunity for Marcus, who goes down the inside. Morgan has been, went slightly wide, but he's got, he's dropped the position, so Marcus has gained P2. And Morgan, who was just completely asleep there when Bryn got going again, has been caught out by Marcus, and that for Bryn is absolutely ideal. Opportunistic from Marcus, but it was a really, really nice move into turn one, and he's got second place, and that was definitely not in Morgan's script on the restart. Then we go down the back straight then. Of course, no DRS enabled for a few laps at least. Game Freaker right behind Free Gloves. He'll be a little bit miffed, I suspect, that he lost that place in the pit stop phase. Zugi loses a place to zero, so as it predicted, those medium tyres not doing much for Ugi at this stage, but what he needs to do right now is just stay out of trouble. And I suspect those tyres will come to him later on. So it's not too much of a concern if these drivers get through right now, because I think he will have a huge pace advantage come certainly the final sort of 5 laps or so. Paco's just confirmed he did crash at the entry of the pit. That was my educated guess on that one, just because it looks like you were going into the pits. Lucky on that one, just wasn't your race, as Timats goes up the inside of Ugi, or at least thinks about it, but can't make it stick. And you're seeing already as Dimsky makes a move past Powdy, so those on slower compound tyres are definitely losing out in this stage of the race, but it should come to them later on. Bryn is just absolutely stretching his legs out front. I think Morgan's best chance to beat Bryn was probably on the restart, and he just unfortunately wasn't really ready for it, and he ended up losing a place rather than potentially looking to gain one. And now he's got to try and find his way past Marcus, and that won't be easy. And all the while, Bryn just stretching his lead out front, and even saving a bit more of his ERS at the same time as well, so that's going to be crucial too. Of course, go on board then with Tim Mats, who will be trying to find a way past Ugi for P7. It's costing him a lot of time at the moment. Powdy's dropped down to 12. His hard tyres will just feel absolutely not with it at all at this point. DRS enabled now, so that'll be present an opportunity particularly for Morgan and Tim Mats if he can't find a way past without DRS, and DRS should help him certainly down that back straight. He just can't seem to get close enough into turn one at the moment. Let's go back with a battle for P2, because Morgan, I suspect, will start to come back at Marcus. Of course, there's no real threat for Morgan in terms of losing a place to Marcus in the final results, because of course Marcus does have a couple of penalties, but it's not ideal. I mean, if you can stay within 3 seconds of Bryn, of course, and if Bryn does pick up a penalty, it means Morgan's not out of contention for the win, but he's starting to drop outside that 3-second window, and that's where the pressure will just go off Bryn somewhat. just not close enough. For someone who is using a pad when they are normally a wheel user, I've got to say Marcus is doing a fantastic job at the moment, and he's not making too many errors out there. Small lock-up, but that's nothing too much to be concerned about. Still, Tim Mats can't get through, and Sam's decided he's had enough of waiting for that and has made an opportunistic move and got the place past Tim Mats. Then Sam is up to 8th, and I have to say Sam was obviously just thinking, I'm absolutely fed up here, I'm not waiting any longer behind that Red Bull, I'm going to try and make a move for myself. Dimsky just behind him has picked up another penalty. His penalty's really stacking up as Morgan makes a move down the inside, and Marcus trying to fight back on the exit, but he has nowhere to go. So for whatever reason, Marcus didn't get a greatest run out the final corner, turn 20, and that gave Morgan the opportunity to take P2, and he has grabbed it. An important move that he needed to make, and his next goal as Marcus gets another 3-second penalty. That's going to do him no favours whatsoever. His next goal for Morgan now is to try and make sure Marcus doesn't have a run on him down this next DRS straight. Will Marcus think about activating overtake mode and trying to come back at him? He is in overtake, so he's clearly thinking there's an opportunity there. So he's not giving up on his second place yet. He wants it back. Is he going to be close enough into turn 12? He thinks of a look down the inside, but he's just not quite close enough. So he has to slot behind, and Morgan has done the hard work now and may just be able to pull away as Oogie and Sam do battle. In fact, Sam has lost the place. Sam has lost the place. It looks like he was going for a move potentially, but he's now coming back. Well, in fact, no, Dimsky's looking at passing Sam as well. So Sam has gone from looking at P7 to dropping to P10. And I believe he may have some damage on that Williams car. Let's see if I can get a closer look. No, I think it's okay actually. Just a slightly deceiving camera angle on that one. But nevertheless, Sam has dropped a few places when he probably thought he was about to gain them. Free Gloves goes down the inside of Marcus, and there was contact there. Free Gloves pushed Marcus off the road, and Game Freaker takes advantage, as does Zero. And Tim Mats as well, further behind, is going for a move on Oogie. And Dimsky is trying to take advantage as well, but can't do so. Drama there wherever you looked, but it was, I think Free Gloves maybe went a bit too deep on the brakes there, and maybe slightly unfairly pushed Marcus out of room. I don't think that would have been his intention. Just maybe get it slightly wrong on the brakes, but unfortunately for Marcus, that has dropped him to the back of his group of cars. And Free Gloves up into the podium positions. And Bryn has a 3-second now advantage over Morgan, so that sort of penalty proofed him, if you like. If he does get a penalty, he's still in a decent spot. Then it's not too bad. Morgan trying to get back within that 3 seconds. It is a crucial margin. Like I said, this is one of those tracks where it's quite easy to pick up a penalty. I'd be shocked if they're not on 0 warnings at this stage. Of course, I was mentioning how Oogie managed to come back at the end, but he's losing so much time at the moment battling with Tim, Sam and Dimsky, but it just isn't helping him at all. So maybe his just outright pace isn't good enough to keep him in contention, and those on soft tyres can just look after their tyres a bit more and still be alright. King Game Freaker, you can see a podium right in front of him. These two both vastly experienced, of course. Marcus is just, I think this is what's costing Marcus the most in terms of his pad. The fact he's using a pad and he's not used to it is probably just the track limits. It's a difficult one to adjust to, particularly when you're not used to it. And this isn't the easiest track at the best of times for that. So that is ultimately going to cost Marcus, and potentially he may not end up with any points if he gets another penalty or two, which would be a shame because I think he's driven a pretty good race considering the adjustments he's having to make. Game Freaker right behind Free Gloves. final podium spot still very much up for grabs. Vapor Zero has 6 seconds worth of penalties. Look at that, Marcus Alday has 15 seconds worth of penalties. That's just not going to help him out at all. And Game Freaker pits. So his Game Freaker decided, and so does Marcus. So I wonder if these guys have decided. Marcus has retired from the race. Well, Marcus, Game Freaker's going for another set of softs, so he obviously has decided that the softs are not going to make the end. It's what I feared for a lot of these soft tyre runners. They're just not going to have the pace of a tyre wear to stick with it. But I'm surprised Marcus has retired, but maybe I'm guessing we thought with the amount of penalties he had it wasn't worth continuing. Shame though for that for him, because he's played a big part in this race, and ultimately he'll leave it empty-handed. Go on board then with Vapor Zero, who's right behind Free Gloves now, as can be said. And putting the pressure on Azugi now comes back at Tim Mats. Oh, but he's lost the car on the exit, and he's now going to lose 2 places as a result. Sam's now looking down the inside of Tim Mats. This is getting super physical here in the midfield. These 3-4 drivers have been going at it for a few laps now, but Sam has to slot in behind. Tim Mats defended that pretty well. Oogie trying to come back now, probably sensing that the soft tyres runners will be starting to lose their tyres somewhat, and trying to come back at them, but it's just not working out at this stage of the race for him, and he's losing too much time effectively, because it's getting to that point now where certainly the leading group of cars will be able to pit and just still beat him pretty comfortably. So this fighting really wasn't what he needed to be involved in, but there isn't too much he can do from that side of things. And Game Freaker is going to catch up to this group of cars pretty soon. It's just showing how much they're losing out. Powdy stayed on the hards, but I just don't think that strategy is working out for him. The hard tyres just not giving him the pace he needs. And Game Freaker needs to clear this Alfa Romeo quickly if he can make the most of his soft tyres. He looks for a potential move. He's probably going to think about turn 12. He's got such a better exit than Powdy. I don't think Powdy's even going to fight this off. He's not using overtake. I think he knows it's just not his fight to go with. And Game Freaker moves up into 11th place. And now he can try and set off after this next group of cars, which is all becoming a big train behind Tim Mats right now. Vapor Zero still right up behind Free Gloves. It doesn't look like any of the top sort of 4 drivers have any designs on pitting. It's going to be interesting to see what their tyres are like come the end of this one. Well, to be fair, if Tim Mats just holds these guys up, the top 4 won't really be under any threat. What's Sam doing? He looks like he was, for a second, going to let the car through. Not too sure what that was all about, but he keeps hold of 6th place for now. Maybe didn't really want to go for a move on Tim Mats instead. Out of the toe. In terms of how it would stand if the results finished as they are right now, Morgan would be the new championship leader. He would have a 3-point lead, I believe. I think the fastest lap's probably going to go to... it's currently going to Bryn. Azugi has a massive moment. He's still not happy on those medium tyres, and it's really costing him. I think it's the right strategy. It's just not maybe been executed as well as he would have hoped. As he almost pushes TV set up a road there. I don't know if you noticed it. The Ferrari driver was there. And Oogie, as a result, drops to 9th. He just isn't finding the grip and purchase that he needs on those medium tyres to make this strategy work. If anything now, he's not even the front-running medium tyre runner. That is TNR Jonas, who's just coming further and further back into this. Game Freak is going to start to fly through this group of cars, you suspect, just because of the extra grip he'll have on those new tyres. Prenz gets a penalty. He's right at the back though, unfortunately for him, so I don't think it'll make too much difference. This is a critical point in the race now where drivers are going to just be, the drivers out there on softs are going to be struggling around for grip, and this is where Game Freaker needs to make hay. He's looking for a move around the outside. I tell you what, if he can pull this off, this will be absolutely sensational. Ugi gives him the space to complete the move. That is absolutely brilliant. I know he had the better tyres and the better traction, but really there was no right for him to make an overtake work there, but he did it around the outside, and fair play to Ugi for giving him the space to pull it off. But right now, Game Freaker, for his strategy to work, he's fully aware. He needs to maybe go for some slightly unorthodox overtakes, just to thread his way through his group of cars. And of course, we saw last week that Game Freaker pulled off an expert tyre strategy under the safety car to go into intermediates at Singapore, so making strategy decisions under pressure definitely seems to be something that Game Freaker is very good at, as he blasts past Dimsky before turn 12 and moves up into 8th place, and he's continuing to fly through. TNR Jonas now up into 6th place and is the fastest of those medium, or the furthest up, shall I say, of those medium tyre runners. So he's now become the effective Ugi, in that he was potentially the threat to those leading guys if they do run into tyre difficulties later on. I can indeed, McCrew, I can indeed show penalties. So at the moment, Vapor Zero has 9 seconds. The top 3 don't have any at the moment, which is great news for them. But looking at the gaps between all the top 3, as Game Freaker is now going to move past Sam into 7th. Yeah, looking at the gaps between top 3, any penalties that do arise in the top 3 could be critical. Particularly if Bryn or Morgan collected one. Tim, Mats and Jonas were without penalties. Most guys in this big trade here have got 3 seconds, apart from Dimsky, who has now just collected his 4th penalty and is up to 12 seconds. So that's really crucial for him. Marcus had a similar problem, which I think is why he retired. He had 15 seconds of penalties before he retired. But as mentioned earlier, he's currently using a pad where he would usually use a wheel, so that may account for most of that. Dimsky's in fact just dropped a few places, so I'm not too sure what's happened there. Maybe just on the exit of the corner, perhaps. But in theory, at least, the soft tyre should only last 12 laps. And I know, obviously, we did a lap under safety car conditions, but nevertheless, it's going to be tough for these guys at the end to keep their tyres in check. And who's done the best job of it? As Game Freaker bullies his way past down the inside of TNR Jonas as he looks to come through the field. He decided to pit about sort of 5 laps ago for new tyres, or sorry, 3 laps ago rather, for fresh tyres. He took the extra stop, and as a result he's coming back through the field, but once he gets past Tim Mats, there's nowhere else really for him to go, and it might just be a bridge too far to gain on the top 4, even if they are beginning to lose their tyres, as Dimsky has retired in the pit lane, so that he had a lot of penalties and maybe thought that it just wasn't worth it for him. So really, Vapor Zero is the main one now, who has 9 seconds. TB Sen has 6 seconds, but yeah, not too much difference between the penalties at the moment. And what can Game Freaker do about the top 4? He really should be gaining on them quickly, because I think they'll be starting to get to that point where they're starting to run out of tyres a bit. But I think it's just going to be too far for them to close, unfortunately. TNR Jonas, though, should have it easily here past Tim Mats. I don't think Tim Mats will have much of a defence. We know he will try to defend, though, if he can. Look at that, he's trying to come back up the inside. Jonas gives him the space, but just on traction alone, the Racing Point had such an advantage and moves back up into 6th place. And this is good damage limitation for TNR Jonas, who had an early collision with Nick Mania, so keeps himself in the championship hunt, but he needs to start collecting wins and podiums again in his last 3 races, because both Felix and Morgan just look at the moment like they have that edge on him. But this 6th place just keeps him in contention, there or thereabouts. Is the fastest lap still going? I wonder to Bryn. It is indeed. That's amazing, really. Game Freaker can't beat that lap time on fresher tyres, not even get close to it. So, looking at it at the moment, I'll keep penalties up there. Actually, I'll keep go back to tyre now because it's going to be very crucial. I expect Prenz has got the fastest lap, so that takes a point off Bryn, which I don't think he'll be too happy with, but Prenz obviously just wanted the glory. And of course, if there's a few more issues for cars up ahead, he could still take a point or two and as a result get the fastest lap points. Bryn, though, has almost got a 4-second lead here, and yes, Morgan was sleeping a bit at the restart, lost a place to Marcus, which did cost him time, but ultimately I think Bryn's just had this under control throughout, and he's driven a really good race. They've got a battle further down. Vapor Zero still all over the back. Free Gloves, by the way, has a penalty now, but Vapor Zero has 9 seconds. So although this is a potential battle on track, I can't see it really mattering in the final result due to the extra penalties that Vapor Zero has. But I don't think I'll stop him potentially having a look at the final podium spot. We are on the final lap of the race then. I'm going to give our race leader some airtime. He hasn't really had much of it, and it doesn't look like there's all too many battles in the field at the moment. So we're going to keep an eye. You can see how much Game Freak is gaining on these guys in front, but I think he's just going to run out of time ultimately. But you can see they are really conserving these tyres now. And Bryn has been able to run his own pace out front, and he's done it really nicely. We've got a yellow flag in sector 3. I think that was Prenz, actually, who's running last at the moment. Just using the last of his overtake. Why not? Get rid of it. Not going to need it. Not going to need to keep any behind after the race. And right now, all the Red Bull mechanics will have their fingers crossed that Bryn can just make it through this last sector now. He's done absolutely superbly, and he will become only the 2nd driver this season in F7 to take 2 wins. The first of those being TNR Jonas, who, believe it or not, has actually not had a better than 5th place finish since then. But here comes Bryn. We don't have an 8th winner in 9 races because Bryn takes his 2nd win of a season to dominate pretty comfortably. Morgan has a puncture across the line, and that's what I was talking about. Drivers are running out of tyres. Morgan just gets away with it, finishes 2nd. Game Freaker will move up to 4th courtesy of penalties. He was quickly gaining on those in front of him. Tim Mats will go across the line. He'll finish 7th. So TNR Jonas actually moves up to 5th. That's a great recovery for him. He's just above his teammate. TB Sen in 8th. Oogie in 9th. Sam will take the final point. Powdy will finish just outside the points, and Prenz will be in last place as he gets a time penalty to boot. But Bryn is a comfortable race winner here today. Morgan overtakes Felix to become the new championship leader, but my goodness me, he got a bit of a stroke of luck at the end, because if that tyre had let go a few corners earlier, Morgan would not have been 2nd. That's no doubt about it. So he got away with that one there, and it sort of mentioned what I was saying. They were pushing the soft tyres to the limit going on them and that pit stop, but of course some of them had no choice. It was either that or the hards. But well done to Bryn. He takes a win. Morgan 2nd. Free Gloves in 3rd. Game Freaker 4th. TNR Jonas in 5th. Vapor Zero in 6th place in the other racing point. Tim Mats in 7th. I think he can be effectively ruled out of championship contention now. Free Gloves with that 3rd place still keeps a slim hope. TB Sen in 8th. We've got Oogie in 9th. Sam in 10th. Pren's got the fastest lap, so there'll be no extra point for Bryn for that. Well done to all the guys there, particularly those who finished the race on those worn soft tyres and really had to nurse them to the end. That was really nicely done from them. In terms of a driver of the day, it's a bit of a tough one actually, but obviously at risk of potentially finding out later on that it was his fault, the first lap collision, I'm going to give my driver of the day actually to TNR Jonas. You might think started 7th, finished 5th, a bit of an odd one, but after that first lap collision and having to pit for front wing damage and just being way adrift at the back, he was really up against it. But I thought that medium tyre stint he did at the end was really good. He did really arguably what Ugi should have done, who was in a much better position to finish up there. So I think it was a really good recovery from him, and it was a never say die attitude, because he could have been easy for him to retire at that stage. So I'm going to give TNR Jonas my Driver of the Day award. Obviously a massive congratulations to his top three. Bryn for his second win of the season. Morgan, the new championship leader, and Free Gloves continuing his recent strong form and his overall pretty good season, it has to be said. But TNR Jonas is my Driver of the Day for his recovery to 5th. That is about it from me tonight. I really hope you've enjoyed the race. I will see you once again next week for F7. It will be round 10 for the Mexican Grand Prix. Once again, next Sunday at 8 o'clock, same time as always. Be sure to join me then. Hopefully we'll have Felix back, because I think we're edging closer to a real championship showdown between Felix and Morgan, and I absolutely cannot wait for that. But that's been me. I'll be back on commentary tomorrow for F4, their race at Austin. I can't wait for that. Obviously all the top 6 PST is running tomorrow night, so plenty of racing to keep you entertained over the next 24 hours. Be sure to tune into PSGL tomorrow evening. It's going to be an absolute blast. But from me, Jake, that's it, and I will catch you all on the flip side.